So you're thinking about moving to Charleston, you keep seeing James Island pop up on your Zillow feed. But what exactly is James Island? In this video, I'm going to break down the pros and cons of living in the most established suburb in the entire Charleston metro. So let's dive right in. One of the biggest pros of living on James Island is the strong sense of community you're going to find here. Unlike some other parts of Charleston where new neighborhoods are going up all over the place, James Island is already well established. Very few new developments are built here, which means the island has kept much of its original character. You're going to find a mix of older homes, mature trees, and longtime residents who take pride in calling James Island home. It really has that small town feel where people know each other and families have lived here for generations. You'll see neighbors showing up to support the high school football team at James Island Charter, and community events like Oyster Roast, local markets, and neighborhood gatherings are a big part of life here. Local businesses add to the identity and give the island a more personal, authentic vibe compared to newer suburban areas. And another thing that makes James Island stand out is how much residents value keeping control over their own community. Over the years, Charleston itself has tried to annex parts of the island, but people here fought hard to stay independent, fighting against town incorporation 4 separate times. After several lawsuits, eventually they won in the courts and James Island officially became its own town a little over a decade ago in 2012. That determination says a lot about how much folks care about protecting their way of life. James Island is the kind of place where roots run deep, and if you value living in a community that's already well established with a strong local identity, it's tough to beat. Another huge pro of James Island is its location. It sits right between Folly Beach and downtown Charleston, which makes it one of the most convenient places you can live in the metro. If you love spending time at the beach, Folly is just a quick 10 or 20 minute drive depending on traffic. And the best part is that you don't have to live on Folly itself, where the median sales price for a single family home was just over $1.3 million to enjoy that access. Compare these prices to James Island, where the median sales price for a single family home was around $690,000, and for a townhome or condo, it was $370,000 as of July 2025. Most of the condos here are smaller, roughly 1,000 square feet, and inventory is pretty limited since the majority of the island is made up of single family homes. But the trade-off is that you can usually get more space in a larger lot compared to what you find on Folly Island for half the price. The location also makes it really easy to get downtown. On a typical day, you can be in the historic district in 15 or 20 minutes, which is a huge perk if you enjoy the restaurants, museums, and events that downtown Charleston has to offer. James Island really is the best of both worlds. You get the laid-back community feel with larger homes and established neighborhoods, but you're also close to both beach and downtown. The central location is a big reason why James Island is so sought after. And because it's an island, it's a haven for people who love to be outdoors. James Island is surrounded by the Sona River on the west side, the Wapoo Creek on the north side, and the Atlantic Ocean and Charleston Harbor on the east side. So if you're into boating, kayaking, or fishing, it's tough to find a better spot. Many of the neighborhoods here have private docks or tidal creeks, making it easy to get a boat or kayak into the water or go crabbing or fishing with the kids. There's multiple public boat landings as well that make it convenient to enjoy these hobbies. On top of this, James Island County Park is one of the coolest places in the Charleston metro because it has 643 acres of walking trails, fishing spots, a splash zone water park, disc golf course, and a climbing wall, and a campground. If you've heard of the Charleston Festival of Lights, this is where it takes place. It's one of the most popular events in Charleston every year around Christmas time, and it's a short drive away when you live on James Island. If you enjoy playing sports, and there are 2 golf courses on the island as well as numerous tennis courts, youth soccer fields, and baseball diamonds for Little League sports. When you factor in that the beach is only 10 to 15 minutes away, getting out on the water or spending a day by the ocean couldn't be easier, and that's hard to beat. Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about one of the downsides of living on James Island, and that's traffic. Because it's surrounded by water, there are only 3 main roads to get on and off the island. That is Highway 30, better known as James Island Connector, Folly Road going down to Folly Island, and Maybank Highway. If you work downtown, the connector is usually your best option, but it does get backed up during rush hour, especially in the evenings. If you work further north in the metro, you'll end up either taking Folly Road towards Highway 171 or the connector into West Ashley, and traffic can be heavy there too. For folks commuting to Johns Island, Maybank Highway is the main route, and that's where things get even more backed up because it's not only James Island residents who are using it, but also the primary road for Johns Island residents heading into Charleston. That extra volume adds a lot to the congestion, especially during morning and evening commutes. On top of that, Folly Road turns into Highway 171 at the Wapoo Creek Bridge, and when the bridge opens for boat traffic, it can easily tack on an extra 15 minutes to your drive. The busiest choke points are at the intersection of Folly Road and Maybank Highway, and of course Folly Road itself, since it's the main road running north and south through the island. During tourist season, beach traffic heading to Folly makes traffic worse, especially on weekend mornings. The good news though is that there are some back road options. If you live on the east side of the island, Camp Road or Fort Johnson Road can help you cut around traffic, and if you're on the west side, Riverland Drive is another option. And while rush hour can be frustrating, the silver lining is that outside of those peak times, traffic around James Island really isn't that bad. Most of the Today you can get around quickly and easily, which makes living here very convenient because of how small and tight-knit James Island is. And to put it in perspective, traffic is really just part of life anywhere in Charleston like any other major metro. Mount Pleasant has its choke points around Highway 17 and the Ravenel Bridge, and West Ashley backs up on Sam Rittenberg and Highway 61. James Island's roads aren't perfect, but compared to some of the other gridlocks you're going to find in the metro, it's manageable, especially if you know the back roads. Another con of living on James Island is that it has a lot of older infrastructure. This is one of the earliest developed areas around Charleston, so you'll find plenty of homes and roads that date back several decades. A large portion of the housing stock was built between the 1950s and the 1980s, so many of these classic brick ranch homes still have their original systems, and if you decide to purchase one of them, you may need to update things like electrical or plumbing or HVAC, and those upgrades can add up. The same goes for the roads and the drainage systems. Many of the roads weren't originally built with shoulders or sidewalks, so they can feel narrow, and drainage isn't always the best when a big storm comes through. Standing water can be an issue when culverts clog, and street lighting is limited once you get away from the main corridors. If you're used to living in newer master plan communities with wide, well-lit streets and perfectly maintained common areas, parts of James Island will feel a little dated. What makes this even more challenging is how hard it is to update infrastructure here. Most of the island is already developed, so widening roads would mean using eminent domain to take people's land or cutting down massive old oak trees, which kind of feels like a crime. On top of this, much of the remaining undeveloped land is wetlands where you can't easily build new roads. And because James Island is surrounded by water, any major infrastructure project typically impacts the floodplain, which requires extensive engineering studies before anything can move forward. That's why improvements like drainage or sewer expansions can take years to plan and complete. There are some newer homes on James Island, but almost all of them are infill lots tucked into established neighborhoods rather than large new communities. That means you might find a brand new home with modern systems, but it will still be surrounded by the character and charm of older, mature neighborhoods. And the silver lining here is this: while infrastructure updates can be slow and complicated, the fact that James Island is mostly built out helps preserve its small town feel and keeps its identity intact. Now, I've already teased this a little bit, but one of the biggest cons of living on James Island is the flooding. Charleston gets severe weather from time to time, and flooding is a major concern when these storms hit, especially near marshes and creeks. Take a look at this map. A lot of homes on James Island are in flood zone AE, which is the light blue area, so you're required to have flood insurance. This adds an extra expense on top of your mortgage, and since many of the brick ranch homes here weren't built on raised foundations, there's more risk of flooding that can damage both the house and your personal belongings. And because drainage systems haven't kept up in some older neighborhoods, standing water on streets, driveways, and in yards is a common occurrence. Flood insurance premiums can range from a few $100s to a few $1,000s a year, depending on the home's elevation and the flood zone that your home is in. The silver lining here is that it's not the whole island. The areas that are not blue on the map are not required to have flood insurance because FEMA has said that there's no substantial risk of that area flooding on any given year. And if you purchase a waterfront property, the odds are that it's going to be elevated, especially if it's a newer construction neighborhood. James Island has a ton of beautiful waterfront and marshfront properties in places like Riverland Terrace, Styles Point, and Seaside Plantation with incredible views, so you don't want to overlook it. Even though flooding can be a concern here, there are ways to work around it. You just have to make sure you get the right property and you know where to look. I cannot say this enough. There are not a lot of places around the Charleston Metro like James Island. It's community oriented and it is one of the best locations right next to Folly Beach and a short drive to downtown. And while it does have its downsides, you won't find a place like James Island anywhere else in the Charleston Metro. As a top real estate team here in the Lowcountry, we want to earn your business and be your resource for real estate. Don't hesitate to reach out. My contact info is always in the description down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.